Welcome, everyone, to episode 4 of Around the Book. We are going to get started with last week's results. Then, after that, we're going to go over week 3 in the NFL and week 4 of college football. First thing I want to address our anytime touchdown parlay. We were 3 for 4 on the legs. We were so close this time. I know JT. I don't want to single you out, but
I was gonna say if I was that one guy, I'd feel so embarrassed.
But we did better than the first one we did, so maybe we'll see some improvement here. We'll get our anytime touchdown parlay at the end of this episode. That way, everyone can get the odds and get that in before the week starts. But I'm still 50% on the year, 3 for 3 in college football, 2 for 2 in NFL. I kind of did a little bit of an opposite this week where my locks hit finally, but my underdogs played like underdogs. I had South Carolina at plus 27.5. I also took the money line on the side, and at first it looked really good. I was excited. It looked like they were possibly going to win outright. Then halftime hit, and Georgia just took over, sadly. So, but I still hit the plus 27.5. Virginia, just fell apart against Maryland. I don't even want to. I feel stupid for betting on them. I never should have, but you live and you learn. NFL last week, I had the over 40.5 for Atlanta and Green Bay. That hit late, or not late, but in the fourth quarter, there was a few scores that got that one over the top. That one covered late but easily. And then I had the Raiders money line. Sadly, for Jake and Dalton, I'm sorry what happened. The Bills came out and looked like the Bills everyone thought we were going to be able to see. So, sadly, that one didn't hit. But I think the Raiders can turn it around this year. And I think they'll be just fine. But, that's what happened last week for me. I'm going to save my gripes for after everyone goes over the record last week because I do have one. But JT, if you want to go over your record next week, you don't look so good. 5-1 coming into this week, and
I fell back down to earth. We knew it was only a matter of time. I mean, blind squirrel can only find enough for so long. But I went 1 for 3 last week. I'm ice cold. Both my college picks missed. I had Western Kentucky plus 29.5 versus Ohio State, and I had Kansas State minus 4.5 versus Missouri. So it was a week where I kind of had to gain some respect for a couple of programs. You know, Missouri almost lost to some group of 5 team the week before, so I did not see them beating Kansas State, but props to them. Maybe they're a little bit more real in the SEC than I thought. I still am not really a believer, but, they made me look stupid for a week, so good for them. And then Ohio State came out, and they just blew the doors off Western Kentucky. So I thought the Western Kentucky offense would be able to cover a 29.5-point spread. It was like 63-10, so they did not come close. So rough week for me in college football. And then NFL wasn't much better. I did hit my lock, which was Buccaneers minus, I think, 2.5 or 3.5 versus the Bears. So that's good for my lock. That's good for my futures bet. Bucs winning the NFC South. And then I took the Texans as underdogs versus the Colts. And I think the day after we recorded this last week, the Texans out of nowhere put CJ Stroud on the injury report with a shoulder injury. And I'm just like, oh, of course. The one reason I picked the Texans, and I instantly throw it in the trash. CJ Stroud did play, and he played well, but the Colts just came up and whooped them. Props to the Colts. I mean, I didn't think they'd be – I thought it could be a close game. I thought it could go either way, so I took the points. It was not a close game, so I've got to respect the Colts a little bit more than I did coming into this. Anthony Richardson had himself a really nice game for when he was in there, and then he got pulled out with some kind of injury. I didn't see what it was, but Gardner Minshew steadied the ship for the second half. Rough week for me. Sad days.
Welcome to the dark side, my friend.
I will say, live betting, I made a nice little bet on the Washington football team when they were down to Denver. So my faith in Sam Howell was finally rewarded. So I'll take that as a win. I don't get credit for it via our little scorecard, but my bank account feels a little bit.
Yeah, that Colts game. No, I don't think anyone expected Zach Moss to come off his couch and just go off like that. That was ridiculous. For college, I finally had a 2-0 day for college. Penn State covered 14.5 in the most comfortably yet uncomfortable way possible. I mean, they looked pretty dominant to start, couldn't score. Then they started to really pull away, get up 23 in the fourth quarter, pull the starters, and then all of a sudden Illinois just starts coming back, and it really didn't look good late, but they held on, got the cover, and then Florida International hit that money line, beating UConn, which was nice. I mean, UConn's just whew. And honestly, Florida International, not bad. I watched that game. Their quarterback Jenkins, he had some SEC. I think he had some SEC offers. It was either SEC or maybe it was Florida State. But he had some offers from some Power 5 programs, and I guess he was told if he went there, he was going to sit for a few years. So he wanted to go play right away, and he looked good for Florida International. So it was nice to go 2-0 there. And immediately, though, the next day was met with disappointment, going 0-2 in NFL. Yeah, not a great time. I'll never again bet on Brandon Staley. It's just not a good idea.
Words to live by,
man, ever. God, and then thought maybe Jets money line had some potential. You know, I'm a big believer in anytime you see an NFL money line over plus 300, it's worth a long look just because of the parity in the NFL. But yeah, they make those money lines that long for a reason. Zach Wilson turns out is not that guy. We know that for sure now. Could be a long year for the Jets, despite how good that defense is. Mm-hmm. Could be a long year.
Yeah, it did not go very well over here at all. In college, we went 0-2, missed the lock and the underdog. Arizona State, I had for my underdog money line plus 136. I thought with their running game, they would at least be able to play and keep it close until the end, and they lost 29-0. So that did not work out. And then I had Colorado to cover the 23.5 point spread, which they were in a dogfight for a variety of reasons there. So it was a bad Saturday. Sunday was not much better. As Dalton said, don't ever bet on Brandon Staley. It's my last time. I'm not even going to say anything else about that. So I was 0-3.
Probably won't have a lot of time left to bet on Brandon Staley. He's going to be gone mid-season if he keeps going.
That's true. For the next 4 games, don't bet on Brandon Staley. And I was 0-3 going into the last game where I had the Commanders money line, and that was not looking good for a while. I think it was 21-3 at one point. And then they came back, managed to basically win the game, and then they somehow gave up a Hail Mary, which made it seem like my weekend was going to get even worse. But luckily they were able to pull out, so I did get one for the week. But yeah, the record took a hit, and I'll be looking to steady the ship this weekend, that's for sure.
Can we chalk this week up to like early season weirdness? Like we're also getting a sense for some of these teams. Yeah. Like this was a rough one all around.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say. I was going to say, for everyone watching, give us 2 more weeks. If we don't right the ship, then you can start fading us, letting us know how much we suck. Keep watching, make money by going against us. We'll say that. I do want to get into some gripes here. Now, my one gripe, my biggest gripe, isn't even on a game that I put out on an episode last week. Don McVay kicking a field goal with 4 seconds left, down 10, and the spread was 7.5, and I had the 49ers at -7.5. Of course, kick the field goal. The Niners only win by 7. I lose that by half a point. I am pissed. How do you I know I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but dude had to have money on the spread there. I mean, what the hell? You're down 10. Why are you what all of a sudden? Why do you want to go for the points, the 3 points, and say, "Oh, it's a moral victory for us"? I'm just pissed at it. I think he knew what he was doing. Roger Goodell, we know you're watching from last week. You got to look into this, man. This is some bullshit. I don't even know what's going to happen if this happens again to me, but that was just the worst beat of the weekend and it pissed me off so bad. Half a point. But anyways, it's a new week for me, so I'm going to forget about it. And does anyone else have anything they want to say about last week or forever hold your peace? All right. So we're good. We're going to move on. I guess I'm the only angry one around here from last week.
I'm just sad.
Yeah.
I'm mad at myself.
Right, man, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah. It's even worse. I guess we'll get into college picks for this week. I'm going to start off with my lock of the week. Or actually, no, I'm going to start off with my underdog. And you know what? After I give my lock, I want Dalton to go and give his lock of the week. Or no, his underdog, I'm sorry. And we'll get into that discussion. But my underdog for the week is going to be the Colorado money line at +675. Now, I know what you're thinking. No Travis Hunter. Colorado's not going to be what they have been the last 2 weeks. I know they were in a dogfight last week, but they still look great at the end of that game. I think this is going to be a game where Deion takes over, and this is going to be a statement win for his career. And I know he's always about the program, always about the kids, always about the community, but I think this week is going to be personal for him, especially going up against a ranked Oregon team. I think he could pull it off, and at +675, you at least have to try with Colorado. I mean, Shedeur is just outrageous at quarterback. They still have wide receivers that are putting up 100-plus yards a game. I don't think much is going to be missing on the offensive side. The defensive side, losing Travis Hunter, that could hurt a little bit in the secondary, but I still think Colorado could possibly pull this one out. And my next one. My lock of the week, and it's an alternate line, is Ohio State -3.5. I got that at -105, and I think they looked great against Western Kentucky last week. I think that was a great warm-up. Coming into this Notre Dame game, Western Kentucky can spread it out. They can throw the ball. The defense was able to stop that. I think Reed had 207 yards that week. And, I mean, they scored 28 points in the last 8 minutes of the second half. Ohio State did. I mean, the score went from 14 to 42 super quick. So if they can keep that up, I think it'll be a tight game, but I honestly think Ohio State will win by 7 or 10 points. I think they'll cover that -3.5 pretty easily. Now, JT, we're going to skip over you. I want Dalton to go ahead and get started on his picks.
All right, so my lock this week is actually Notre Dame money line +140. I know it's plus odds on a money line, but honestly, you go blind resumes on this game to Power 5 top 10 ranked teams. Both so far have looked on paper pretty similar. Rosters are built very similarly in terms of the amount of 4- and 5-star talent both teams have. You would take if you look blind resumes, you'd handicap this game Notre Dame at home -3. That would be the normal handicap. The fact that, and honestly, I really like them to cover it. But here you're getting money line at +140 for some reason. I think, a lot of people are looking at what Notre Dame has been the last few years. But the big difference between this year and before is they have a quarterback this year. Sam Hartman is much better than any quarterback they've had over the last several years. I mean, he's probably the best quarterback they've had since at least Ian Book. You could probably go back further than that. I mean, maybe even to Jimmy Clausen or Brady Quinn. I'm not saying he's as good as Brady Quinn. Not saying that. But I'm saying since then. I mean, he's not going to have the NFL prospects at this point, but for a college quarterback, he is very proven. That's the important thing. Very proven. On the other side, Kyle McCord, young quarterback. This is the first game. This is the first real test of his college career. I know he got a mini test on the road week 1 against Indiana, but this is going to be a lot different. Notre Dame has people that can actually somewhat cover Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm going to say somewhat because I don't think anyone can truly cover him, but this is going to be a huge test, and I think there's going to be some growing pains for McCord this game, and I really like Notre Dame to win this game. I'm thinking it's going to be a low-scoring game. I like Notre Dame like 23-24-20, something like that. I think it'll be low 20s game. I like Notre Dame. And then my long shot pick this week, actually sharing that with Jake, going Ole Miss money line plus 230. I don't want to say too much on it. Let Jake talk about it more. But I think this is the worst Alabama team since 2007. And the Lane train's coming. This is Lane Kiffin's Super Bowl in Tuscaloosa. A very vulnerable Nick Saban coached Alabama team. This is the biggest game of Lane Kiffin's life, or at least recently. I mean, he's going to have that team ready to play. Ole Miss is sneaky good. They're really flying under the radar. I know they played Tulane close, but as we saw last year, Tulane's a good program. I think Ole Miss is going to shock a lot of people.
And Dalton, before we get over to Jake on that Ole Miss game, the reason why I'm confident in this Ohio State team is McCord last week was able to. I mean, they told him he was going to be the starter going forward. So I think that took a little bit of pressure off of him because I know him and Brown were going back and forth. I think that let him breathe a little bit. The wide receivers for Ohio State can make anyone look decent. I think this is the X factor for this game is going to be McCord. I'm either going to look really stupid saying that, and that's fine with me, or I'm going to look really smart saying it, and hopefully that's the case. But I think McCord is going to have himself a good game. Anything not crazy, putting up any 400-plus yards. I'm not saying anything like that, but I think he'll be efficient. I think he'll have a few deep balls. I just think they're going to go in. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. That defense, shut down. I know it's Western Kentucky, but they're a passing team. Shut them down. I'm excited for it. So I guess one of us are going to be happy.
Yeah.
One of us will be sad.
I'm probably just way too overconfident right now after going 2-0 in college last week. I think I'm probably way overconfident. So I'm due to come back down to earth. I'm due for some humble pie here. So you're probably all right, Casey, but I don't know. I feel this Notre Dame pick.
I don't want to say it, but there's room for both of us to lose here this week on this pick. So.
Oh, yeah. Ohio State will win this by 1.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's the thing, though. I think you're both right. I think it's going to be a showdown of the quarterbacks. I mean, McCord started to show something last week. He's the big-time prospect. He's the next guy at Ohio State. And Dalton, you're right about Hartman. You said he's the best quarterback in Notre Dame since Brady Quinn. But are we 100% sure he wasn't in college when Brady Quinn was there? Like, are we sure he wasn't at Wake Forest
I have to
already?
do some math.
I swear, Sam Hartman is older than I am.
I think he's got to be what, 26?
60. No, this is like his 8th year of college, I think.
I don't even understand how that happens.
Did you see that Miami, Florida tight end looking for his 8th year of eligibility?
Who's that?
The tight end from Miami, Florida, looking for his 8th year of eligibility or something like that.
I respect it.
Yeah.
Hell, next thing you know, we'll see him playing for Bishop Sycamore next year.
Yeah.
Apparently, that guy is still trying. He has games scheduled for next year.
And
who is agreeing to schedule?
I don't know. Or maybe when the doc came out, maybe he was talking about this upcoming season. I don't know. He's probably got a new team, and people don't realize it's the same guy. It's a shell game.
Yeah.
He's like Michael Scott. I can just make up as many high school football teams as I want. I got a million names.
Let's make them like fantasy football teams.
I'll just start another paper company and another paper company.
All right. Back to our picks here. Jake, I think if you want to get started, then we'll go to you, JT.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm taking for my underdog. Same with Dalton. We're agreeing this time. Hopefully it goes better than last week. But Ole Miss money line against Alabama at plus 230. And, as Dalton said, this might be the worst Bama team since, 2007. They just did not look good against Tulane. I think it was a one-possession game until decently late in the fourth quarter, which is just insane to think about. But Ole Miss's offense is very, very impressive. They've won every game pretty handily. And then against Texas 2 weeks ago, there was a ton of big plays given up by Alabama's defense. I think as long as Ole Miss is able to play some solid defense, their offense is going to do more than enough here. And then at plus 230 odds, you got the chance to make some money here. So I think that's pretty solid underdog pick. And then for my lock, I'm going with the over on points for BYU and Kansas. And the line is 55.5 and then minus 110 odds. Both of these teams score a lot of points. Kansas has one of the most efficient offenses in the entire country, in my opinion. They've averaged 37 points per game this year, and BYU has averaged 31. And then both of these teams' offenses move the ball quickly. So I don't think, it's going to be a fast-paced game. There's going to be a lot of plays ran. It is storm season in Kansas, but last time I checked the forecast, it said it was overcast and not raining. So I'm hopeful it stays that way. But I think BYU and Kansas over 55.5 points will be a solid lock. I think I'm a bit more confident in these college picks than last week, so hopefully we do better.
Well, I am not feeling confident. I went over in college last week, so, trust my bets at your own peril. But I am going to go my lock of the week. I'm going with Florida State minus 2.5 versus Clemson. And something about that Clemson versus Duke game really stuck with me. And Clemson just does not look like the same team it was a couple of years ago when it had Trevor Lawrence. And, I know they lost Venables to Oklahoma, and it's they've never really recovered after that. And granted, I know playing at Clemson is a totally different atmosphere than them being on the road. Death Valley is one of the best home field advantages in the country. I've been to Clemson, love Clemson. I got family there. But Florida State, I think, is the best team in the ACC. And if they're going to the playoffs like I think they are, they have to win this game. And I think they're going to win this game. And I think giving them just 3 points is not that much to ask. It's not a wide margin of victory for a team that I think is notably better than Clemson, even at home. I'm going Florida State, and I'm taking the 2.5. I think they're going to do it. I feel confident in it. That's why it's probably going to be wrong. And my underdog pick, I am going back up here to my backyard in the Big Ten. I am going Rutgers plus 24.5 versus Michigan. Michigan, I think, is one of the best teams in the country. I think they have a really good chance to win the Big Ten, but they have not been blowing teams out this year like you'd think they would. Their running game hasn't looked as dominant as it was last year. J.J. McCarthy has looked mostly good, except last week when he threw 3 interceptions. I mean, they won by 24 against Bowling Green. So, give Rutgers, who is 3-0 and having a really good year so far, they look really sharp. Giving them 24.5 points cushion, I feel really confident in that. So I think Michigan will win, but I do think it'll be closer, maybe a 10-point game, maybe sweating in the fourth quarter. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like that.
Yeah, I was almost going to go with Rutgers on that one, and I think you're right. I think the game is going to be decided within 10 points. I would not be shocked to see Rutgers winning that game. So we'll see. Like you said, I don't think Michigan's looked that great either this year. So definitely agree with you on that one.
I would love if Rutgers won that game. I just got
Shut your mouth.
I just got my dad tickets for us to go see the Penn State Rutgers game in November. And if Rutgers won that game and that ended up being if that ended up being like a game of like 2 undefeateds or 1 loss teams or something, and like game day ended up going there, probably not happening. Rutgers will probably be lucky to be 500 by then, but a guy can dream.
They've looked sharp. I mean, I know they smacked Northwestern, and granted it's Northwestern, but Northwestern has looked better than expected this year. And Greg Schiano, say what you will about him as an NFL coach, he is all about hustle and effort, and he's putting players in the league right now. Yeah. So he is developing the lower tier talent he's getting there into upper tier talent. So I think Rutgers is a little bit on the upswing right now, and I'm not feeling super confident about Michigan. So I like the points.
Yeah.
I want to say Michigan is 0-3 against the spread this year, I think.
I think that's right.
I know they were 0-2 after the first 2 weeks because I bet against them, and then I'm pretty sure they didn't cover last week either.
Oh, I don't think they were close. I think they were like 40-point favorites.
Yeah. Yeah, they've not looked good. But either is Ohio State, who's are going to be their main competition. So maybe the Big Ten will be the Big Ten championship. We'll see Rutgers and whoever else come out of there, and
Rutgers and Purdue.
Yeah,
the spoiler makers.
Yeah. So
or it'll be Iowa. Iowa's going to run the table. Go to the playoff, and then Brian Ferentz is still going to get canned for only averaging 22 a game.
Yeah,
the Big Ten West is so bad. I could really see that happening. That's a legitimate option.
It really is.
All right, so let's get into first off, college. I mean, I think it's going to be a great weekend for it. I'm sure we'll all have some more bets we'll talk about at the end of this episode for college, but really looking forward to this weekend. Let's get into the NFL. Some good games this week. I'm going to start with my underdog, actually. I'm going to take the Commanders money line plus 235 against the Bills. So JT has slowly pulled me into being a Sam Howell believer. They're 2-0, first time since 2011. That year, I think they only won like 5 or 6 games, so it didn't look good after that 2-0 start. But this is a different Commanders team. We've seen the Bills look terrible like we did on week 1, and then they've looked great like they did last week. We don't know which Bills team's going to show up. I think it's more likely the latter will show up, but you never know in the NFL. Dalton, like you were saying, if it's anything plus, I would even go plus 200 in the NFL. I think you have to look at it and think, could this team really win this week? And and then in the NFL, it's any given Sunday, who's going to win? All those cliches. I think Commanders have a shot at plus 235. Now, my lock of the week, I'm going to hammer this play. And I think Brock Purdy over 228.5 passing yards at -110 is a lock this week. The Giants are hurting. I know they won last week against Arizona, but they have not looked good, and they have a few key injuries this week. Purdy is averaging 213 yards this season. He did miss a few deep balls last week just by overthrowing them, so I think he will hone that in this week. I would not be surprised to see Purdy at over 275 yards passing this week. I know that the average doesn't look that way right now, but I think even without Ayuk, Kittle's going to get more involved, and he's a monster at yards after catch. That's just going to keep adding to the yards. 228.5, I'm going to hammer that, and I think it's going to hit over all day. But those are my picks for this week in the NFL. JT, if you want to go next on that and let us know what you're thinking about this week.
Sure. So I'm taking an under this week because I am anti-fun. I'm going Bears and Chiefs under 47.5 as my lock. Bears are a mess right now. Their defensive coordinator just resigned. They're raiding Hallis Hall. I have no idea what's happening in Chicago. Justin Fields is talking about his coaches being the reason he's looking robotic. They are just dysfunctional right now. The offensive line is not good. And Justin Fields, unfortunately, has not looked very good either. I hate to say that. And then the Chiefs have not been impressive on offense yet either. I mean, they only put up 20 versus the Lions and 17 versus the Jags. Neither of those are stellar defenses. And we know what Patrick Mahomes is and Andy Reid is and Travis Kelce is. But outside of that, their offensive line looks like a mess. Their other receivers, not named Travis Kelce, aren't particularly impressive. I know they'll definitely get that point bump in the over-under because of Patrick Mahomes, but I really think this is going to be more of a rock fight than a shootout. So even if Mahomes is Mahomes and this is like a 30-13 game, that's still comfortably under.
Mm-hmm.
And then my underdog pick this week, I'm going with the Rams. My +2.5 Monday night versus the Bengals. And no one has been lower on the Rams coming into this year than me. But I've got to give respect where it's due. They whooped on the Seahawks in week 1, and they were competitive with the Niners last week. Matthew Stafford is looking healthy, and when Matthew Stafford is healthy, he's a top 10 quarterback in the game. And he is elevating a bunch of nobody receivers and making them look like a really functional offense. So I am going to go with the Rams. Probably in my own personal bets, I'll probably go money line against the Bengals, who I'm really worried about with no healthy Joe Burrow, and their defense is a mess, and it just feels like it's falling apart fast in Cincinnati. But if not the money line, I'm definitely taking +2.5 in this game.
Yeah, I am following you on that money line for the Rams. Being here in Cincinnati, I'm in a few group chats with some buddies, and they're in shambles right now. It's not looking good. Joe Burrow not being 100%. Who knows if we even play this week? The Rams, Stafford was carving that Niners defense up, so I can really see them doing the same to the Bengals and getting out of there with a win.
Puka Nacua is the real deal, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Puka Nacua. I question how viable he'll be once Cooper Kupp comes back, because they kind of play that same role.
Yeah.
Both are, true slots. I don't think either is great on the outside. But in Cooper Kupp's absence, Puka is killing it, and I love to see it.
Yeah. Honestly, it's tough, but you don't want to start writing off Cooper Kupp yet, but I think he's 30 now, right? Or approaching 30. And he's
he broke out later in his career.
And Puka can do a lot of similar things, and he's a lot younger, probably a little faster.
He turned 30 in June.
Yeah. Maybe they start. I'm sure. Kupp's role's going to be his when he comes back, but you never know. He could slowly start ceding time to Puganuku, and they might just have to get more creative with how they use Cup.
Well, the
As
thing
you
about
say,
Cup, though, it's not just that he's 30 now. He's never been a guy who can stay healthy.
No.
Like, as dominant as he is when he's on the field, and he is truly one of the 5 best receivers when healthy, he only has 2,000-yard receiving seasons in his career. He just can't stay on the field long enough to dominate like he could. We could be talking about a Hall of Fame receiver in Cooper Kupp if he could just get on the field and stay there. But he can't.
The way he plays, he does get hit. He's not a guy that works a lot on the boundary. It's going to catch the ball, step out of bounds. He's not necessarily going over the middle and putting himself in danger a ton, but he does a lot of after the catch stuff that does leave him more susceptible to it. All right, so getting into my NFL picks. Sorry, JT, but I got to go after the Bucs here. I'm taking the Eagles -5 as my lock this week. I'm still not bought in. I think the Bucs are very misleading 2-0. They beat Minnesota they beat Minnesota in week 1, and I don't think the Vikings are as good as we thought they were going to be. They clearly aren't happy with Alexander Mattison trading for Cam Akers today. Plus, I think the Eagles are slowly getting together. They had a slow start against New England, but they looked pretty good last week against Minnesota. Now, I don't put too much stock into that game or just Thursday Night Football in general. I think Thursday Night Football exists in its own weird universe, where I think you can't really put too much stock in those games. But the big thing about that Thursday night game is that the Eagles get 3 extra days of rest, which in the NFL is always crucial. And I think they can easily win that one by a touchdown. Eventually Baker Mayfield's coming back down to earth. So Eagles -5.5. I got that at, or -5. I got that at -110 odds. And then my underdog pick this week, I'm going Broncos money line at +230. It seems crazy on the road against a 2-0 Dolphins team. But do we really think Sean Payton's going 0-3 to start out his tenure in Denver? Do we really think Sean Payton's going 0-3? I think
maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit.
Hopeful thinking.
I mean,
it's my Raiders fan brain talking right there.
Yeah. Same, but Denver's offense looked a lot better in week 2 against Washington. And that actually is saying something, because I do think Washington's probably better defensively than the Raiders, which obviously isn't saying much, but I do think they're slowly figuring it out. I think as the season goes, Russell Wilson will get a little more comfortable. He's never going to be his old self, but I think Denver can do enough to shock some people this week. I think the Dolphins are kind of due for a little bit of a letdown the way they've started out. Also, worth noting, the Dolphins are at home this week, but they've had a lot of traveling. They had a coast-to-coast trip week 1. Then they had to go all the way out to New England, back down to Miami. It's been a lot of traveling. I do think that, they might wear down a little bit this week. And I like the Broncos, and at +230, decent value. So we'll see what happens.
All right. So this week for my NFL underdog, we're going with the Falcons money line at +136. They're playing the Lions in Detroit. I really like what I've seen from the Falcons to start the year. I think their offense looks really good, and I've been impressed with Desmond Ridder. which I didn't think I would be. He hasn't been a world beater by any means, but he has been very solid, and I've been pleasantly surprised with how he's been able to use his legs. He's ran the ball well. Obviously, so is Bijan Robinson and Algier. Drake London had a big game last week. They still don't like to use Kyle Pitts for some reason, but he's also there. And then on the Lions, we've got Montgomery missing this coming game. And their backup running back Gibbs is pretty solid, but Montgomery's had a huge start to the year, so I think they're going to miss him a bit. I think this is going to be one of the closest games of the entire Week 3 slate, and at plus 136, I like the odds for the Falcons here. And then for the lock, we're going with the Patriots plus 2.5 at minus 110 odds. And my reasoning for this is just Zach Wilson. The Jets have lost 15 straight to New England. Zach Wilson against the Patriots has 2 TDs and 7 interceptions. New England, their offense hasn't looked like anything special this year. And the Jets do have a pretty solid defense, so I do think this game will be close, but all the Patriots have to do is win by a field goal for this to hit, and I'm pretty confident that they'll be able to do that against Zach Wilson.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback off that one. I know I was going to wait till the end to go over some more picks, but I think their line for the over-under on that is 36.5. That's pretty low. I know that these two teams aren't going to score a lot possibly, but I think 36.5 is pretty attainable. So I think I'm going to hit the over on that one. But it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be scratching for it.
Couple injury notes for that game for the Lions-Falcons. CJ Gardner-Johnson just went on the IR with a torn pec, so one of their best defensive players is out for the year now. And I saw Amon-Ra St. Brown did not practice today. So Lions are really banged up right now. So I think that only echoes the Falcons' money line in this game. For a defense that wasn't very good to be losing starters, multiple starters already in the year, I think that's a big day for Bijan coming.
Yeah, I didn't even hear about those two, but that makes me even more confident now.
I like what you mentioned about Ritter. That was one of the things I loved about him coming out of college was his decisiveness with his legs. And we're starting to see that in the NFL. He is so good at knowing when to just say, oh, middle of the field's vacated. I can go get 5 to 8 yards. He's so good at that.
Yeah. Totally agree. So let's get to our anytime touchdown parlay this week. This one's going to be a little bit longer odds, I think, from our previous weeks. We don't have any it's not no names, but you're not going to see your everyday stars on this list, I think, besides one of them. Now I feel left out since I was the one who chose them. But I took CeeDee Lamb plus 120 to score a touchdown. Now, I think he's at 220-something yards this year so far. He's getting his yards. He's getting his catches. The Cowboys are just destroying people, so they're not getting as many passes off these past 2 weeks. CeeDee really hasn't seen his true potential. But with the way Arizona's been playing teams, if they give the Cowboys a game, which shouldn't even be something that's said this year based off what we thought was going to happen, but if the Cardinals can give them a game, I really think CeeDee's going to get into the end zone this week. Even without that, I think CeeDee's just been on the cusp every week, and he's just getting closer and closer, and I really think this is going to be the week he takes it in. And then, JT, who was your pick this week for the touchdown parlay?
So let me answer your question with a question. Who is the number one wide receiver in the NFL when it comes to 20-plus yard receptions this year? It's Tyreek Hill. But right behind him is Nico Collins. So my anytime touchdown scorer this week is Nico Collins of the Texans. He is 5th in the NFL in receiving yards. Him and CJ Stroud have made an instant chemistry, instant connection this year. And the Texans don't have a lot of weapons to spread the ball out to. So I think Nico Collins is going to get targets early and often. And honestly, I don't think the Jaguars defense is all that good. So I do think Nico is going to get a lot of looks in this game. And I do think he's going to find the end zone again. So give me the longer odds on a guy like Nico Collins, who's off to a really hot start this year.
Yeah, before we get to the next person, those odds are at plus 235 on his own to score a touchdown. So great odds for this.
All right. I got Brian Robinson Jr. at plus 150. I really like the fact that he's got 3 touchdowns in 2 games so far. He's done it both. He ran for 2 last week against Denver. He caught 1 in week 1 against Arizona. He's getting 20 touches a game, roughly. I think he had 19 week 1. And he had, I think, 21 in week, or no, he had 20 and he had 20 both weeks. He's getting solid volume, and don't let last week fool you. Buffalo still isn't great against the run. I mean, we saw it week 1. Breece Hall gashed them. I know last week, the Raiders just can't run the ball right now. We could spend a long time talking about why that's the case and how with Josh Jacobs and basically the same offensive line, they still can't run the ball. We could get into that for a while, but regardless, Buffalo still is they do have some weakness against the run. I really like Brian Robinson here, and plus 150 is not bad for a team starting running back to score a touchdown. I mean, more than likely, if they're down close, he's going to get the ball.
All right. So to cap this off, we're going with plus 210 odds on Jerome Ford this week. After that brutal injury to Nick Chubb, Ford was immediately the lead back from that point on. He got 16 carries, and he rushed for 106 yards, which is 6.6 yards per carry. So he was very, very successful against a pretty solid Steelers defense. He had 3 receptions as well, so he's getting involved in the run and pass game. I don't see anything changing this week. I think he's going to get the biggest portion of any of the running backs by far. So, and then at plus 210 odds, that's really going to sweeten up the parlay in general. So I'm pretty excited about that pick. I think Jerome Ford's going to have a big day.
Yeah, I picked him up in my fantasy football because I did have Nick Chubb. So I think he's going to do good.
Worth noting on that might be a line to watch tomorrow. Once Vegas kind of assesses the Kareem Hunt signing, because Kareem Hunt just re-signed with Cleveland. He probably won't impact Ford's volume this week, but he could give like an extra plus 10, plus 20 to Ford's odds this week to score. So might be worth sitting on till like later in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think in a couple weeks, Hunt definitely could take over a pretty big portion of the reps there, but I think it's going to take at least a week or 2 for him to kind of get acclimated. So I think, especially this week, I think Ford will get it.
Yeah. I think if anything, he's an odds booster for Ford, and that's it.
Yeah. And I will say, when we do these parlays and whenever we go over our picks, these are lines basically 5 minutes before the stream starts. So you could have, like you said, there could be some different lines. I think it is smart, Dalton, to wait a little bit and see if the Kareem signing will help those odds a little bit, and that'll just make this part a little bit sweeter. But if we were to parlay all 4 guys into one, we come out with 5,000 or plus 5,612. So to put that into perspective, a little $10 bet on that would be $561.18 total payout. If you were to, if you didn't want to wager that much, I know $10 might not be much to many, but to a lot of the average people like me, $10 is usual bet for me, or $5. If you were to bet $5, $285.59 payout. So a few dollars could set your bankroll for the rest of the season, I would say, depending on how often you bet. Like I said, we hit 3 out of 4 last week. This is our week. I'm feeling it. I'm liking it. This is going to be the week that it hits. If not, we'll move on to week 4. But I think this is going to be the week that it hits for us. But before we close out the episode, did anyone have any additional picks that they weren't going to be putting a lock or underdog on, but they just saw and liked if they want to go over those? I will say, like I said, I did like that over in the Jets Patriots of 36.5. I think it's just going to be one of those fun ones that hits in the last few minutes of the game or possible last few seconds.
I like Purdue possibly as an underdog against Wisconsin. I mean, even just a +6, that's pretty generous. Yeah. And then fun one. I don't know if it'll hit necessarily, but fun one might be Army +13.5 against Syracuse.
Yeah, I was looking at that one.
They can take the air out of the ball.
Yeah. And before we got started on the show, I was telling Dalton, I think, and this one's going to sound crazy, I probably shouldn't even say that loud, but UConn over Duke at +950. Duke shouldn't be ranked. I mean, I don't know. They're not that great this year, but UConn has just been historically bad for the past 10, 15, 20 years. So probably won't happen, but if you're feeling dangerous like I am, I'm going to put a couple bucks on that one at +950, and we'll see what happens. But tail that one at your own risk.
Yeah. Colorado State's getting 3 points against Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
But man, I don't know. That could very much be a letdown game for them. I mean, you could tell they were, I think Colorado got their best shot last week.
Yeah, I think Colorado State put all their effort from the season into that game and came up short.
All of their unsportsmanlike conduct penalties.
Yeah.
God, I couldn't believe how many. That was insane. And and it's not like they were kind of soft calls. I mean, they were blatant.
Yeah. I mean, that one on Travis Hunter was felt bad for him, but yeah, that was bad.
That was you wonder if Jonathan Vilma was helping out there.
Yeah.
Some bounties.
All right. So I guess, Jake, do you have any additional picks or anything?
Do we know if Anthony Richardson is playing this week? Or because I know he's in concussion protocol, I think.
I think the last time I saw him, he was questionable.
If he plays, I kind of like the Colts money line against the Ravens at +275.
He's surprisingly getting this done with his legs this year.
The Colts have looked good with him.
Yeah.
And against the Ravens, I mean, the Ravens are favored for a reason, but 275 is pretty solid odds with how the Colts are playing. So
totally agree.
See, I almost like it more with Minshew just because of that, weird.
I love
deal with him. You just never know.
All right, so trail us at your own risk this week. With how these past few weeks have been going for us, like I said, give us another week or two, and if not, you can just start fading us and laughing at us and all that good stuff. But I think this week's gonna be good. I'm gonna hope that we all win some money. I hope that our picks go well, and let us know if you follow our touchdown parlay. Let us know if you follow any of our picks. If you have any picks you want us to follow or look at, definitely let us know. We'll be more than happy to get into those with you. And we'll see you all again next week, Wednesday at 9:30 Eastern again. If anything changes with that, we'll let you guys know. But we appreciate everyone watching, and hopefully y'all make a good bankroll.